Hi, this is Tom from tombell.co, and in this video I'm going to be answering or trying to answer some of the questions that you guys left on the Q&A video in the comments section. Now, this video has been long overdue, but I've got loads of interesting questions and topics to cover, so let's get straight into it. So Stanislav has left a few questions, but the first one here is, what's your take on indoor training? Is it worth investing money on smart trainers, Zwift, etc.? Now, I'd definitely say that indoor training and things like Zwift are definitely worth investing in if you're short on training time, as a way of making your training as specific and controlled as possible when you don't have much time. What smart trainers do, or just indoor trainers in general, is make it really easy to just get on the bike. You don't have to spend time layering up and getting the bike ready to head outside, and then there's no cleanup kind of afterwards, so it's a very time efficient way of training, as you probably know. And definitely smart trainers and Zwift are a great way to get around that motivational and mentally difficult part of indoor riding. Having the accountability of other people to train with, as well as a virtual world, and a smart train as well that gives you power data and all those metrics to look at, it's just going to make your motivation to train a lot better. The way that they help just get you on the bike and keep and hold your interest as you ride, I think they're worth the investment if you're going to use them a fair amount. If you only ride indoors a few times a year, which is what I'm like, then maybe it's not quite worth spending $1,000 upwards on a smart trainer, and you can probably make do with a fairly cheap £100 or $200 turbo trainer, especially if you have a power meter as well on the bike. But yeah, definitely worth investing in if you feel like you're going to be using it quite a lot. So another question from Stanislav is pasta or rice, and I've got to say both. I eat pasta mainly for lunch, and we'll usually have quite a lot of rice salad and rice-based things, maybe with vegetable curry or something like that in the evening. So yeah, definitely both, and I tend to eat just white rice and white pasta for both of those. Another user that's left quite a lot of questions is Lawar8. And one of his first ones is, Tom, is it necessary to be a vegan to have good nutrition to be a cyclist? It seems like, at least on YouTube, that you have to be one or the other. What's your dietary suggestion? I'd immediately say to anyone who is interested in this to check out one of my most recent videos, which is a kind of nutritional day in the life, where I take you through a few of the things that I eat in a day and what I eat on a ride. I definitely don't think it's necessary to be a vegan to have good nutrition for cycling. That's just proven by lots of professionals that aren't vegan or aren't even vegetarian. Personally, I do think most people would improve by going more towards a plant-based diet. It certainly works really well for me. I mean, just outside of the performance thing, it's better for the environment, it's better for the animals, and I feel it's better all round. And certainly in years to come, we'll see that plant-based nutrition can really help performance. So I try to get on that bandwagon early, and like I say, I see a lot of upsides to that nutritional approach. So I wouldn't say it's necessary. Okay, so Michele Zucchi, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, says, hi Tom, do you think the outdoor FTP 20-minute test can be done uphill? I don't have any chance to find a 20-minute flat road in my area, 13 to 14 minutes max. Do you think that could be good enough to test FTP? In this case, what is the right percentage to apply to the test wattage? So Michele is referring to the fact that on the 20-minute FTP test, you do a time trial for 20 minutes, and then you minus generally multiply it by 0.95 to get the rough estimate of your FTP. I suppose you could do it with 13 to 14 minutes and just maybe take that down to 0.9 times by 0.9, so 90% of the the FTP result. I'll have to try that out myself and see if it kind of roughly approximates to the same thing. So I've got a fairly good idea what my FTP is, and definitely doing it on a hill is definitely fine. I usually do it on a hill myself. I'm going out to Gran Canaria soon, so I'll be testing the FTP on some of the longer hills we've got there, but you can do it on the flat or on the uphill sometimes, depending on what kind of terrain you ride. Most often you'll get a slightly higher or lower reading, but if you know what kind of terrain you're best on, you can just allow for that difference in wattage. But yeah, it's fine, definitely fine doing it on a flat or do it on an uphill. So Midge or Midge, I'm not quite sure how that's pronounced, but he or she asks, do you have any tips on losing weight when having low body fat and high muscle mass, i.e. high carbohydrate, plant-based food and do triathlon? To be honest, if you've got low body fat and high muscle mass, then you probably don't want to lose very much more weight, because usually, you're wanting to lose weight by just lowering body fat and maintaining muscle mass. I suppose if you've got muscle mass that's not directly contributing to faster cycling, it might be that you might want to slim that down, and the way you could probably do that is just, if you are doing any strength training, maybe put less time into that and more time into riding the bike, so catabolic exercises rather than anabolic strength training. So that might be a way to do it, but and maybe if you're overeating, that would help sort of lose a little bit more body fat if you just cut back on the fat and ate a little bit more high carb. But it sounds like you're eating high carb plant-based, so it sounds like you're doing a lot of things right, really. So maybe if you're doing a lot of strength training, maybe back that off and do a bit more cycling. So Lawar8 has asked a few different questions, but here's one. Hi Tom, another suggestion for the Q&A. Can you comment on interval training for endurance cycling, like centuries, versus training for racing / crits? Now what I'd say with this is that you've got to train your general fitness and then transition that into specific fitness. Generally speaking, the general fitness for endurance cycling versus sort of 1 hour highly intense racing like crits won't be hugely different. You still want to train for a big aerobic base, so spending a lot of time on the bike. Maybe obviously not as much if you're racing crits as for centuries, because centuries just demands you spend a lot of time on the bike, and the aerobic base is going to be more of a priority. Generally speaking, you want to build that general fitness in a relatively similar way, and then once it gets to closer to your sort of target events, closer to the competitive season, that's when you want to start transitioning that general fitness into specific fitness, and obviously that's where the difference comes in. Crits, you probably want to be doing 10-15 second sprints with active recovery just repeated, so dialing in that ability to surge very hard, way above FTP, way above VO2 max, and then recover and go again. Whereas with centuries, your interval training is going to be geared a lot more towards longer intervals, more towards the functional threshold power, to work on abilities that will translate into long climbs. You might want to also train sort of shorter intervals for those shorter, punchier climbs, so you can get over them without expending as much energy as you would if you hadn't done some specific intervals for that. Okay, so Louis Alves asks, what's your max heart rate and does it stay the same however your fitness? That's a good question. From what I can see, that my max heart rate doesn't really change. It's just the ability for me to reach that max heart rate that sometimes varies. If I'm really tired, sometimes it's very hard to get to that max heart rate because I just can't push the muscles enough. My max heart rate is 206 BPM. I've seen that a couple of times. Yeah, it tends to stay the same, or it has done for the last few seasons. I sometimes see that in races right at the start of cross-country mountain bike races, and so yeah, I think it generally stays the same, but my ability to hit that heart rate changes throughout the season, depending on what kind of training I'm doing and what sort of shape I'm in. Okay, so Joe Benion has got a few questions, which are not necessarily cycling related, but more related to this channel, which could be quite interesting. So the first one is, what is your reason for starting to vlog? And I'll use the term vlog widely, so talking about the actual vlogs that I do as well as just these training advice videos. The reason I do these videos is because I enjoy helping other cyclists improve their performance and get the most from their time, their available training time. And it's just nice to hear from people that I've helped or given a bit of advice to that they've implemented successfully. Second question from Joe is, do you do your own bike maintenance? Simple answer to that is yes. I've worked on quite a few bikes over the years, built them up from just a frame. So I'm fairly experienced in bike maintenance, but there's always more to learn. And third question, what's the income like for a pro at your level? For a pro at my level, the income from cycling is not very high at all. It's not a full-time wage. I do get money that I'm paid to ride for a brand or a company, but I supplement that with cycling coaching, as you probably know, and a few other things. So yeah, it's not, in mountain biking specifically, there's not a massive depth of paid athlete or really high earning athletes, so I'm working on trying to get more towards that level where I can earn a full-time salary. The fourth question he asks is, which are your top YouTube channels that you follow? To be honest, I don't really follow that many cycling related YouTube channels anyway, but I like to follow entrepreneurs and business people. So Gary Vaynerchuk is one that I really is a guy in a channel that I really like, and Durin Rider for a bit of entertainment. I find that guy quite funny, quite strange at times, but yeah, for entertainment value, that's a good one. ZDW95 asks, what are your thoughts on combining weightlifting and cycling? I know there are a lot of benefits to pumping iron, but recently I've been having trouble recovering appropriately with both lifting and cycling. And this is something I can really identify with, because I also find it quite difficult with a fairly high volume of cycling training to actually put weightlifting in there and then not have that compromise my cycling and not and be able to still recover from the weightlifting so that it doesn't hinder the cycling. And yeah, it's a tough one. I would say you can spend more time weightlifting at this time of year, so more in the off season than you can in the racing season or competitive season, and it makes sense to focus more on the cycling in when you're closer to your big races than it does in the off season. So I would put more time into weightlifting earlier in the season and then transition to more specific activities like riding the bike later on. I would just say get on top of your recovery strategies if you're not maybe optimizing that enough, so making sure you're getting some good food in and good protein and a good balance of protein, carbs and fats in as soon as you can after the sessions, taking as much time off your feet as possible, as well as just reducing kind of life stress that can really have a big impact on your ability to recover day to day, and then focusing your weightlifting on very specific activities so you're not putting fatigue into the muscles that isn't then going to translate into increased cycling fitness. So finally, I've got a question from a username that I'm not even going to attempt to say or pronounce. I'll put it on the screen here. But here's one. What do you think is a good amount of training hours for an amateur like me when you want to race but also don't want to neglect friends and family? Now, that's a great question and something that I know a lot of people deal with. You can get a lot done if you're very specific and set some good goals with 8 to 10 hours a week. I coach some athletes that do those kind of hours and do really well. It's just a case of making sure you're using your time as effectively as possible. So I always go by the principle of when your training hours go down, your available training hours go down, your average intensity should go up. So making sure that most of your rides are quite intense and really sort of pushing your body to make adaptations and to get fitter. So I would say 8 to 10 hours. If you can, any more you can do is going to be better. You can just ride those at a lower intensity, so you're not killing yourself every kind of training session. Yeah, 8 to 10 hours is a good starting point. If you can do 12, 13 on some weeks and add in, you might find some time on a weekend where you can add in a longer ride. That's just going to help, and that should give you enough time to sort of still hang out with friends and family. Especially at the weekends, you might want to designate one weekend day for a long ride, and then hang out with people in the evening, and then maybe take one of the other weekend days just to sort of family time, and that might work quite well. So thanks a lot for submitting your questions. I know I've got a few other ones dotted around different videos, so what I'll do is compile those and put those into another video, and do a second Q&A session. So yeah, just keep asking as many questions as you want. I love answering them, and it really gets me thinking about different training principles, and also gives me topics to cover in upcoming videos. So all that's left to say is thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you on another video soon.